You dropped the bomb on me, baby. You dropped the bomb on me.
Whoa.
Hello and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, the podcast where, Matt and Todd go to the movies with special guests Tim and Marie. This is the podcast where all four of us went and saw a movie at our local Regal cinema, and now we're going to talk about it. We're going to say such things as, should you see this movie? Should you not see this movie? Should you hold off of it for streaming? Do you absolutely have to see it in theaters? Should you snack or hold off? Do you need to pay attention? Or couldn't you just kind of lolly about and let your mind wander? I am Todd Domer.
And I'm Matt Malloy. And yes, we saw a movie. Dun, dun, dun. We saw the movie Oppenheimer. This is a movie about developing the atomic bomb. There's a bunch of people in it. Tim, take it away. Who we got?
This is quite the cast list on this one, and it's a Christopher Nolan movie, so a lot of people wanted to be in it. Oppenheimer himself is played by Cillian Murphy, who's, I think, been in almost every Nolan movie, if not all of them, most of them.
He was in all three Batman movies.
Yep, and he was in quite a few. And he's a very recognizable actor, also from 28 Days Later, and,
Peaky Blinders.
Mm-hmm. And then playing his wife in the movie is Emily Blunt. Playing one of his liaisons is Florence Pugh, who's been in plenty of things over the years. And then you just have a treasure trove of other celebrities here. We have Matt Damon shows up as the general on the base that they're working on. Robert Downey Jr. is Strauss, who's I think he's a senator or a congressman.
He's an admiral.
He's an admiral who basically kind of appointed Oppenheimer to the position he was in. We have other scientists and politicians in this. We have Josh Hartnett shows up. He's been a while since I've seen him in something.
Josh Hartnett.
It's been a while, but he was in the new season of Black Mirror.
Okay, gotcha.
I watched.
We had Rami Malek shows up in the middle of the movie, as does Dane DeHaan, who's in he was the Green Goblin in the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, and he was also in Chronicle.
Yes.
We had Kenneth Branagh shows up as one of the fellow scientists.
Rami Malek. You said Rami Malek.
Yeah, Rami Malek.
That's not...
No, that's somebody else.
Oh, okay.
Dane DeHaan.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah, so you're good. Alden Ehrenreich, who played, it was the young Han Solo. He shows up as one of Strauss's aides. Casey Affleck shows up at one point. But he's a star. Matthew Modine, who's been around a long time, shows up in this. Gary Oldman has a small role, but he's there if you can spot him.
A memorable role.
Yeah. Jason Clarke, who's a longtime character actor. Most recently, the biggest thing was he was John Connor in the Genesis Terminator movie.
Also the second Planet of the Apes movie.
Thank you. Right. That's true, too. I think I've got almost everybody here. David Krumholtz was also in the movie. He's another character actor who I mostly remember from. He was the main elf in Santa Claus, and he was the kid that Wednesday falls in love with in the Addams Family sequel. Yes. But he's been around. He's been in a ton of things over the years, and there are just so many other little cameos, like Olivia Thirlby, who I always have loved. She was in Juno, and then she was also the female judge in Judge Dredd. And then, what's that? David Dastmalchian. I'm not sure how to say his name, but he was the guy in Suicide Squad, the most recent one. You know the actor when you see him. He kind of looks creepy. But yeah, there's
he was
so many.
Dude in Suicide Squad?
No, he was one of the superheroes, but I forget his power. He was like one of the sad ones. I forget what it was. I'll look it up later. But anyway, lots of recognizable names, and there are more people even than that in this. But those are all probably the ones you would go, hey, I know that guy.
Fair enough.
Cool. Well, so what is this movie about? Well, one thing that I don't like in movies is when we jump around in times.
I was thinking about that the whole time.
I was the non-linear.
Matt's going to think about this.
Yes.
We got a non-linear one here, guys. So I'm going to go just in chronological order of what happens.
I think that's fair.
And there's no real spoilers here because
it's history.
It's history, right? So we go through, we kind of get the early years of J. Robert Oppenheimer as he's kind of learning and developing his theories and figuring out about like hearing different ideas about nuclear fission, really, and how we can split the atom, and eventually somebody does that, and all the physicists across the world say, "Oh my gosh, we could make a bomb with this." And so at that point, the race is on. This is during World War II. And so famously, the Manhattan Project is launched, and J. Robert Oppenheimer is picked to kind of lead the scientific part of that, and with some different people, and they end up setting up this town, this laboratory, this area called Los Alamos, which exists today, of course, but there was nothing there when they started that, and that's where they work on this bomb, and they move it all the way to the place where they're going to test the bomb, and of course they test it and it's successful. That's a big highlight in the movie. A big, climactic point is when they blow the bomb up, and then other parts of the movie deal with kind of the aftermath of that, and like how did Oppenheimer feel about the bomb, and how it was used to, we dropped 2 bombs, the U.S. dropped 2 bombs on Japan, which brought about the end of the war. Did it really need to happen? Were they going to give up anyway? All those things that I've heard a lot before, but then we go from there into there's this character, Admiral Strauss, who we referenced before, who basically is trying to ruin Oppenheimer because he doesn't like what happened. And so that sort of unfolds, and we hear about how that process happened and how Oppenheimer's security clearance was revoked, and so he couldn't do the work that he had been doing his whole life, basically, working on these kind of classified atomic bomb type projects. And then the third phase of this is Admiral Strauss now wants to join the cabinet, I think as Secretary of Commerce or something like that. And so you get these hearings before Congress, and then you get scientists who then come in and testify against him, and eventually he doesn't get appointed as the secretary position, mainly because of what he did to J. Robert Oppenheimer. And that's the movie. So and largely that's history too. So Todd, what is your gut reaction to Oppenheimer?
So the reason I was wondering how you felt about the linear stuff, because this is the first movie in a while where I was like, this is jarring. Like, I have such a hard time figuring out what's going on. And the only times where almost exactly what's going on is because they went the extra mile to set it apart from everything, is Admiral Strauss's cabinet interview stuff, because it's all in black and white.
Right.
But the rest of the movie, you're just kind of left to fend for yourself. Where are we? When are we? It's just so jumpy, and it was very distracting for me. It didn't kill the movie for me, but it was a pretty big minus for me. But outside of that, I mean, this is a movie that is just driven by performances, really good performances. Almost the story and how they present the story, you could take it or leave it. This movie is driven by the actors who really embraced their roles and really took it. I don't know if I would say too far, but there's all these articles coming out that Cillian Murphy didn't meet with the cast outside of filming because he was in that actor space and stuff like that. And I believe that stuff exists. I just have a hard time getting it, because I'm like, what? Just have dinner. It's fine. But that's kind of here nor there. Everyone in this movie does an incredible job in their role. I didn't really think there was one or two actors or actresses that just really didn't deliver. I thought everyone, I think some people did better than other people, but I think everyone did a pretty well job. a pretty good job. That was at this point being really well received. So besides the jumping back in time and stuff like that, and the pacing of the movie, which at times got weird to me, the other big distraction thing for me was like the weird sex scenes that would happen, like with like Florence Pugh, and then like the dreaming of the sex stuff that would happen. Like it just was. I didn't feel like it fit at all. I think sex and stuff like that can be used in a movie to like enhance or tell a story or do something, and I just really didn't feel like those scenes did much to enhance anything. It just felt like something that was thrown in, for me at least. And the biggest like weird one to me was Cillian Murphy and Florence Pugh sitting in chairs naked talking to each other. Like, I just was like, this can be a real moment between two people without it being this weird naked talk session. Like, that probably doesn't bother people, and it's not that it bothers me, it just felt out of place. Like, I was taken back by it.
So how do you feel about the fact that we're doing this podcast all fully nude, Todd?
Yeah. Well, you can do that in podcast land because no one's going to see it. But way to peek behind the curtain a little bit.
Or not peek, really.
So, those are some minuses for me, but I felt this is a really strong movie. Great practical effects, great sets, great, like, a lot of stuff. I thought a lot of effort went into the surrounding areas where they were, and I appreciate that effort. You can really see, just the building of the town and all this kind of, like, I thought the sets and the cinematography, and again, this is a Christopher Nolan movie, so, like, that stuff's gonna be good. It's gonna be on par. That's what he's known for. So, like, all that stuff was great. I thought, even the script I thought was really good. It just was those weird time jumps. Like, it felt like as soon as I felt comfortable with where I was and what was going on, we jumped again. And that's just hard for me. Like, and maybe it's hard for Matt. I don't know. I'll wait until he talks. But yeah, I mean, I think the story doesn't even have to be completely linear. Like, you can jump, but this one jumped between 3 or 4 different things going on at all times. And I felt like, when you're seeing a person juggle 5 different things, if they're doing it effortlessly, that looks nice. If they're struggling and they're bopping all over the place, that looks like chaos to me. So, yeah, I still recommend it. If you're gonna see it, definitely see it in theaters. Again, this is a movie that is made for theaters. It's made for IMAX if you want to see it in IMAX. It's got a ridiculously long IMAX film reel or something.
Yeah.
If you can see it in 70 millimeter IMAX, do that.
True
IMAX.
That's really
true
hard.
IMAX. Yeah. So, yeah, and if you're gonna see it, definitely see it in theaters. I mean, you can wait if you don't feel like going outside, but this movie's gonna be different, scaled down.
I agree with that. I agree.
So, yeah, that's it for me. I would say Marie.
Thank you. This felt like a really big movie.
Yeah, big is good.
It was big. It was intense.
That's a good word, too. Yeah.
I won't belabor the jumping around in time because I found that distracting as well. But what I thought was really interesting was, at least I think, the most current part of the movie was the part in black and white, right? The last
trials.
part of it.
Yeah.
Of the
Yeah, there was one scene near the end where Oppenheimer's getting a medal. And that was
right. That's the very end.
Yeah,
the very end. Yeah.
But yes, you're right. The black and white scene
the
was
most current
the most
part.
current
So
part.
that was confusing to me because at first I kept thinking that it was the past in black and white, and then my brain had to remember that was present day, for lack of a better word.
Well, it is reverse. I mean, typically when movies will do the stuff in the past is black and white,
Right.
and then
Right.
feel
So
like
it took me a
you
while.
chose that on
It took me a while to figure that out. So I won't talk more about that because you covered that. What I loved was the character actors. I thought everybody was exceptional, and what I found really interesting was I could barely recognize some of the actors. Be like, they kind of look familiar, but who are they?
Right.
Like, I think I know them, but like Gary Oldman, I was like, oh, that's who that was. And so,
Blinking
and
and
even Emily Blunt and Florence Pugh and all of them, like, and it took me a minute to find Robert Downey Jr. in there. Like, he really, I fully expect him to get an Oscar nomination, because that really was really good. Like, when I was watching him, I thought, oh, he's going to get a nomination. So I thought the acting was really intense and really good. I loved, like you talked about, the scenery and being from New Mexico. That was really great for me to see all of that, and having been to Los Alamos and knowing the landscape, that was fun to see that. It was a long movie, and I did feel it after a while. I was like, oh yeah, my back's kind of hurting. We really need to get out of these seats. So I felt like it didn't have to be quite as long as it was. And some of the technical stuff was interesting, but not super relevant to, I think, the whole arc of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't have to put all that technical stuff in, because they were trying to make it about him and his experience and his relationships, but they spent all this time on the physics of it, which they lost me for a little while in there.
Well, yeah, I felt like they would present the physics, but they didn't explain the physics. So I was just
there
like...
you go, right. So
I was like, okay,
I didn't really
that's great
understand
information
what that
you just
meant.
threw at me, but I don't know what that means.
You know, I've heard that word quantum before, but, there's nothing that tells me. And then they had a little bit of animation in there, too, when they were talking about black holes and things, like, and gravity and it being so dense and sucking things in. So it was kind of a weird mixture of effects and a little bit of animation, and it was interesting. But, so, and then my only other kind of disappointment at the end was for a kind of historic biop type of play. What do they call them? Biopic? Biopic, thank you. There was nothing at the end that said really what happened to him.
Yeah.
Did he go live in the mountains in a hut? Did he stay with his wife? When did he die? Like, I don't know what happened after they wrapped it up a little bit. Einstein kind of helped us hear what happened to Oppenheimer later, but we don't really know what happened to him.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I have to read the book to, like, really know how this story ended.
Wikipedia will tell you what you need to know.
Sure, but I expected a little blurb at the end.
Well, yeah,
saying,
if you're doing a biopic of a character and we don't know how, especially a person who has lived and died at this point.
Right.
We would like to know, you kind of gave us the full story, you just didn't give us the end of it.
Right.
Like, the absolute end.
So he got, whatever honors or whatever afterwards or not, and then what happened?
Yeah, like I was really curious, what did he do when he couldn't do what he did all of his life?
Right.
What?
When he was not reinstated or his security clearance was taken away from him, well, then what happened?
Yeah. This
Did he
seems
go
like
crazy?
a major crushing blow that we don't get to see what the result is.
Yeah. So
Fair enough.
I left there feeling like there wasn't closure in my story.
Tim?
Yeah, so I'm with you guys, and I think big movie and intense movie, those are excellent words for this movie. It felt like this is an important movie and want you to think it's an important movie, but not in a bad way. Like, it did feel important. Like I said, all the actors brought their A game. Everybody, committed to it. Nolan was doing lots of editing tricks and like you were saying, like some of the scene transitions were like particle splitting or bomb sounds or like things about to blow, and I think he was doing that. And I thought some neat tricks he really did was when because like you said with the non-linear stuff, they were kind of playing at the same time as the trial got more tense with Oppenheimer and them kind of almost yelling at him or going after him. Is the same time they're getting ready to test the bomb, and Nolan was trying to say this tension is the same. And so sometimes, like, the lights would be bright in the room as if he was looking at the bomb itself. And he was trying to do tricks like that, which I thought ramped up the tension even more. Even though you're watching it going, well, that's movie stuff, but it worked. and he was trying to be flashy in a way that worked for the movie. Because Nolan's stuff usually is kind of over the top and very intense and very, he's willing to play with the camera and play with stuff and draw you in with that. And you could see his touches there, and it worked for me. I do agree with most of the stuff that we said about non-linear can be confusing and stuff. I think he chose the black and white for the trial on purpose and color for the time on the bombing site. I think he was trying to say, this is how I was interpreting it. I sound like a
confirmation hearings.
Right, yeah, that's what I mean. It sounds like, for me, the film study kind of in me says like he was trying to say that everything you saw on the site was pretty much in living color, different viewpoints, different ideas going together, everyone trying to get to the same point, but everyone allowed to disagree and all that. What was happening with the trial was kind of black and white. They were after him. Strauss was guiding it to be a certain way, but it wasn't that way, and that's black and white because this was more. It was a more of a versus battle of perception, as opposed to what was out in the field was much more open-minded and all that. So that's how I think he was going for. I could be totally wrong on that, but I could see a film teacher having whole essays on that.
Oh, this will be a college professor who
Yes.
does movies dream.
Yes.
To put on their stupid teaching jacket.
Yes. But like
this
I said,
is how you do transitions.
right? And I can see, but again, I think it did work for what this movie was going for. I'm with you guys in the pacing. Like I thought, actually, for me, the first 30 minutes were a trudge to get through.
Well,
setting it up, and getting the
science.
Getting the physicists together and
physics.
why it was important to me. That stuff was like, and then like the Florence Pugh stuff, like you said, just didn't seem as necessary. I guess they're trying to portray him as not a perfect man. So unlike other biopics, this one, what I thought did a good job of being like, we're not going to angelify him. We're not going to make him like, yes, he was credited for doing it, but we're not going to show him as like this no flawed man. Like he's got flaws, he's got problems, he's not perfect. But he helped usher in this important thing. And then I think the ending shot is supposed to be more, here's the whole man, you judge how you want to look at his view on history. I think that he was trying to be open interpretation, not telling you how to think about him, but here's his legacy, what do you think? I think that's what he wanted, instead of a blurb saying, Oppenheimer lived a great life and blah, blah, blah. He wanted you to think about it. Now, you can debate if that's a worthy choice to make, but that's what I got out of the ending there.
I was joking with my dad when we were walking out of the theater that the first 20 minutes of the movie is Cillian Murphy staring at stuff.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like that legit is
He's
the
good
first,
at that, though.
It's just him staring at the wall, staring at a whiteboard, staring at the sky. Like, it's just scene after scene of him staring at stuff.
Oh, I did read, not to interrupt you,
Okay.
but this was Christopher Nolan's first time directing sex scenes. So
Yes.
maybe that's part of why it was so awkward. Like this,
And he wanted to use it in a filmmaking way as opposed to just,
right.
Well,
And that one where they were sitting that you referenced, that was the last time Oppenheimer saw her, that character.
That is true.
So there was something really significant about that conversation.
Yeah. It's hard to pay attention to the conversation with what was going on the screen.
Sure.
But stick with what you know, Christopher. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
But yeah, I mean, I don't have much more to add than that. But this is definitely, like you said, a big movie, very tense. Like once it got going past after the first 30, 45 minutes, I thought it never stopped and it never let up in a good way, where you were just involved. You're watching these guys try and, say that, like, well, obviously Oppenheimer, you must be a communist because everybody you know is, or at least was at one point, and him having to be like, I don't even think that way, I'm scientific mind and all that. I thought all that stuff was really fascinating because that was the politics of the time. And, it's just the way they wanted to bring him down, and he didn't want to be brought down. And but he also was almost like resigned to it, like as if he was like, look, I am who I am, deal with it. And I thought that was interesting, too, the way they played that. So, yeah, but I think you're right about Downey Jr. He's maybe even more likely to get nominated than Cillian, although I think Cillian was excellent, too.
I think they both will. That's
But yeah, and Nolan will probably get best director nod, too.
Sure.
It is a really good movie worth seeing. I do think people should see it. It's not a blockbuster in that kind of way, but it's definitely it's an interesting movie that you'll come away with thoughts.
It's certainly a step up from Tenet, which
I still
was
haven't
a
seen.
really
I
bad
haven't
movie.
seen thanks to you guys' review.
really
less
bad
interested.
movie. Anyway, we've teased Matt long enough. Go ahead, Matt. Give us your review.
Yeah, sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
Well, interesting that you brought up Tenet because, of course, I hate nonlinear movies, and Tenet is like the worst example of a movie like that. Yeah. And Christopher Nolan, did you learn nothing?
Yeah.
Come on. No, it bothered me.
He cut his teeth on Memento, let's not forget.
Yeah, well, true. That one was pretty well done.
Yeah.
So, yes, I didn't like that, but whatever. We've still got a movie here. We've got star-studded. You guys have mentioned excellent actors and actresses' performance. It's there. I love to see Florence Pugh. I'm a kind of a fanboy of hers at this point. And
I think she wasn't used enough, personally.
Agree. I'll always take more Florence Pugh in movies, actually. Coming into this movie as someone who, I really like the history of atomic bombs, which is kind of a weird niche thing to say, but
it's fascinating to you.
It is fascinating to me. I spent a whole day in a museum recently in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is about how the evolution of the atomic bomb happened and stuff like that. That didn't serve me well going into this movie because I felt like I already had a lot of the information that was shared about J. Robert Oppenheimer and about the Manhattan Project in general. I was like, okay, I kind of know that. And that's where, to me, the 3 hours was too long, I thought. And it was, for me personally, I felt like it was too long because of that knowledge where a lot of the times I was getting information that I already had, and I was like, you didn't need to put that in. They probably did need to put it in. But for me, it was like, oh, this is just stretching this out. It doesn't really need to be that way. So overall, the positives for me were the acting, the audio, and the visual experience are both excellent. I thought that, there's several times where loud noises were used in this film, which it kind of catches you off guard, and it's really well done. Yeah. So those are the positives, and you're telling a story of something that I really like, so that's a positive too. Negatives, too long, and I felt like the non-linearity part of it really struggled to keep me engaged in the story. I felt like I was jumping between three different stories, and in some ways I was. The last thing I'll say is that J. Robert Oppenheimer died in 1967 of throat cancer. His wife died the same year. They remained married. They have a daughter, I think. And
a son? They had a son in the movie first.
They had two.
Yeah, they had two in the movie.
He said they had two kids in the movie. I don't know what. In real life.
In real life, yes. And they spent some time on beach islands and sailing a lot. So there's your blurb at the end of the movie.
Excellent news.
Fair
Thank you.
enough.
I was hoping he'd go to an island because that's where everyone should go after things like this.
Yes. So that's what I'll say about the movie. I mostly liked it. There were some detractions, but I think if you're going to see it, try and see it in 70 millimeter IMAX, true IMAX, if you can find that anywhere near you. I don't know of. We did not see that.
We didn't
but,
we didn't even see it regular.
It was. It's worth seeing. Is it a good movie? Interesting. That's what will come from. What will come next with our ratings. That's what I'll say about that.
All right. Well, seems really fitting. How many A-bombs would you give this movie?
Boom.
0 being the worst, because then we have no nuclear war, and who wants that? 5 being the best, because we got lots of bombs flying around.
Yes.
Let's Matt.
Yes. Well, I'm going to go with 3.24 A-bombs out of 5. I thought that the negatives did not outweigh the positives of this movie, but I'm not willing to really elevate it because of the negatives, especially the time slicing that happened. Should you see it? Sure, but I don't think it's a great movie. I think it's a fine movie.
Fair. Marie.
I'm going to go with 3.5 because I think we've covered all the things that were a struggle for the movie, but the acting really, it was worth it to me. And it was an intense experience, and I did learn quite a bit, but the acting was fantastic.
Nice. TM?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think for me, it's not the great movie it wants to be. It is a good movie, and it is worth seeing. And I do agree that acting is the primary reason to see it. The acting is top notch. For me, the acting brings it to a 3.6.
I am not far off. I'm going to agree with Marie. I'm at a 3.5. And I have a burning question for the audience.
Go
So
ahead.
someone get back to me, and we'll talk about this after the podcast is over. I need to know what exactly happened to Florence Pugh's character. And we'll talk about it after. Mm-hmm. But if you've got an idea and you've seen it and you're listening to this podcast, get on the old Facebook and let me know what you think.
Okay,
It's interesting.
we will do that. What happened to her in real life or what happened to her in the movie?
Both.
Okay. Gotcha.
I have questions, yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll take that offline. Any other thoughts before we wrap up?
Nope.
Okay, great. We've covered it all then. So that's going to wrap up this episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, where we saw the movie Oppenheimer, and we gave it an average rating of 3.46 A-bombs out of 5, which is decent. And I think our recommendation is see it in theaters, and enjoy yourself, and try not to get too mad at the out-of-orderness of the plot. Thank you, all listeners, subscribers, downloaders. Please continue to do all of those things, and we will see you next time.
Da 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 da
Da da
da da da.
da da da.